Well, hello, my friends, and welcome to the Live Inspired podcast with John O'Leary. Adam Wright is today's guest. He's also one of my dear friends. More on that in a moment. Adam Wright is the president and the CEO of Pilot. It's one of North America's largest travel center networks, serving more than 1.2 million travelers every single day, including the O'Leary family. From an all-American football player to a corporate leader overseeing 30,000 team members, Adam's journey is a roadmap in resilience, in intentional leadership, and in the transformative power of faith and family. Today, my friend Adam joins us to share how life's challenges, and he has dealt with many of them, just wait, can fuel greatness. The pivotal role of faith and discipline in his life and in yours, and the importance of showing up for people that they matter at every single turn. My friends, I met Adam several years ago. We have remained in touch after meeting at that conference. He has grown into a friend of mine and a guy that I look up to almost like a brother. He's an amazing man, and you're going to find out why I'm bragging on him so much as we dive more deeply into his story. And you're going to leave this story, you're going to leave this conversation with practical wisdom on embracing grace and grit and purpose and faith and actionable insights on leadership and life. You're going to love this conversation. So let me step away from the microphone so Adam can step closer to it. My friends, ladies and gentlemen, won't you welcome onto the Live Inspired podcast, my brother, my friend, and now yours. His name is Adam Wright. Adam, welcome to Live Inspired with John O'Leary.
Thank you, John. Glad to be here. Glad to see you and spend more time with you.
Man, as I told you off air, this is a rarity for me to have an opportunity and the honor of interviewing not only an executive, a business leader, someone who is guiding forward an organization with 30,000 souls and lives, man, impacting millions of people each day. That's a cool thing. More than that, though, I'm impressed by you as a human being, as a husband, as a dad, as a person of faith, as a man of character. If you happen to be in a, I don't know, grocery store and someone stumbled into you and you bumped carts and they said, "I'm sorry, man, my name's John. What's your name?" And you said, "Adam." And they asked you, "Adam, what do you do?" How do you respond to that? "Adam, what do you do?"
Oh, well, General, well, first of all, thank you for just your opening comments. Very humbling to hear that, and praise the Lord. Like, what do I do? I usually start with I'm a dad, I'm a husband, the things you sort of rattled off. And if they say, "What do you do for your job?" I say, "I work with people and strategy," is generally what I say. I very rarely tell someone my title. To start with, I work with people and strategy and culture. That's really my focus point. I tell people all the time my job and my role is to implement the systems and processes for thinking and doing. How do we set things up so people can think about things in a way that's reflective of our purpose and then go about doing the work so that we deliver results consistently for the millions of people that we serve and the 30,000 team members we work shoulder to shoulder with?
Well, man, I'm gonna step away from your strategy and your people and your tactics and your investing in them as human beings. Draw back from that a little bit. We're gonna get in our vehicles. We're gonna fill up, of course, the pilot, and then continue the road trip forward back home to Omaha, man. That's where this journey began. I've heard you in other interviews, other conversations, and just one-to-one talk about your mom and the impact, the influence that she's been on your life. We'll come back to her in a moment. I want to hear first
Okay.
about your dad, though. Would you
Mm.
share a little bit about who your dad was?
Yeah. Ah, man. So, yeah, I don't know if your objective is to get me to cry, but you're already
It is
starting the
because
water.
every time I hear you, man, I cry. I was emotional today planning on this conversation. So yes,
uh,
cry and share. Let's go.
well, so my dad, funny thing about it is, he died when I was 8, about a month before my ninth birthday. So I was in third grade. So I didn't get a chance to know him fully. I'd have loved that opportunity. And it's a question I ask my son all the time. I was just with my son, who's 20 years old in Australia studying for his junior year, and my daughter and him and my wife were on vacation. I was talking to him and I was just looking at him and I was like, what's it like to have a dad? Like, I just don't know what it's like to sit across from your dad. I don't know what security that provides. I don't know what pressure that brings. This is fascinating to me. And so I never had a chance to really experience having a father in my life past 8. But what I do remember about my dad is that he loved us. He was extremely hardworking. He was very generous. I mean, there would be kids lined up to get their bikes fixed. I remember leaving his funeral, and you're in the limo and the hearse and all that, and then you got the funeral procession behind you. I just remember very clearly, like it was yesterday, looking out the back window and seeing the parade of cars. Just for this ordinary guy, just such a long line of cars. So I remember, that about him, and that he cared for us and he wanted us to be well off and successful. He worked 3 jobs. My mom, didn't work while he was alive. I tell people all the time to like, you can ask a million questions. You can try to find your way through things before you give your heart to it. I tend to think you give your heart first. You fall in love first, and then ask questions later. Like love first, ask questions later. And that's sort of the way I try to approach a lot of things. Benefit of the doubt, love first.
And dad helped instill that in you.
Oh, big time. Just yeah, because I didn't know much about him as a man. I didn't know where he went. I mean, my mom told me he, dropped out. I don't know if he can drop out of elementary school, but like second grade, started to work, labor jobs, born in the South, Holly Springs, Mississippi. He was 54 when he passed away, and I was 8. And so he was much older than me, much older than my mom. And so just got to work at a very young age. But other than that, I didn't know his political views. I didn't know the first girl he kissed. I didn't know how he thought about, saw the world. But I I loved him immediately because he loved me, and I followed him everywhere he went. So I followed this man around. I remember being in the backyard picking up sticks and moving the grill for him, and rolling the hose up and just doing stuff with him wherever he was. I was. I mean, there's a picture of me. I think my mom still has it. We had a fire in our house. We lost a lot of things, but there's a picture of me with a stuffed lion, which I have a lion behind me. I just love lions. So I have a stuffed lion, and I'm sleeping on his chest, and I'm wearing a little ball cap. Where he was, I was, and I knew nothing
Mm.
about him really as a young kid, but I knew he loved me, and I loved him, and that was enough to get me inspired to follow him around. So, love first.
Well, you can tell a tree by its fruit, man. So I see a
Mm,
little bit of who your father was in the man seated across from me today, but I also see a lot of who your mother is.
mm,
Your
yeah,
mother, I know, stayed at home and raised 3 kids. And then when you're 8, her life is blown up. And a lot of ways to respond to tragedy. One is to remain a victim to it. And your
mm,
mother chooses to rise. Talk about your mom.
yeah. And I love my mom so dearly. And as I've gotten older, our relationship hasn't been as strong as it once was. But just the example that she set, the model of hard work, just the wisdom that she shared and imparted, she was always available. And these little nuggets, these little wisdom bombs she would drop, I still remember, and I quote them quite frequently. Things like, there's honor in all work. I just remember very clearly being on the front porch, and the mailman walked up, and me and my friends were out there on the porch, and the mailman's wearing the shorts and the little shirt, and my friends are making fun of the mailman for how he's dressed. And I just remember my mom shouting through the window, "There's honor in all work," and that has always stuck with me to this day. But yeah, to pick up the pieces, and I can't imagine what that was like for her, with no job, no career path, no college education or education really beyond high school, and for her to have to pick up the pieces and put it all together and just show me nothing comes free, nothing comes easy. She refused to take free lunch. Nothing wrong with it if people do. It's there for a reason, and it can help you get on your feet. But she just refused to, and just said, "Hey, we're gonna figure it out and pull it together." Went back to school. Went to nursing school at College of St. Mary in Omaha. Graduated third in her class. All the while in a very abusive second relationship, physically abusive, and just to hold all that together, um, they're pretty remarkable that she was able to prioritize her education and her family and to do what it took to make sure things held together in spite of everything she was facing, the emotional trauma of losing her husband and having the 3 kids, and then trying to put herself through school, working basically full time, and then being physically abused and emotionally abused, and to come out of that. just she's a remarkable woman. And I'm very, very proud of her, and I love her very much.
You lost your father at 8. Your mother steps into an abusive relationship, and there's collateral damage in your family because of that. Your older siblings are choosing the wrong path. You're in a relatively impoverished neighborhood in North Omaha. You're an interracial child.
Mm,
You're essentially checking every single box to become yet another statistic. And yet here I am across from the president of Pilot Man, part of the Berkshire Hathaway family of businesses.
mm.
Uh, why weren't you? I know that's a loaded question, but what allowed this kid that
Uh,
really, in the eyes of the world, shouldn't have ever done anything positive, really? I mean, everything was up against you.
mm.
So what allowed you to begin to elevate?
Oh, well, I'd be remiss if I didn't say just the grace of God to start with that. I mean, that's first and foremost. John, I don't know. I look at myself and I don't see a whole lot of what you just, described, even at the opening of this thing. I just see a dude, just a dude. And the same things that tripped up others, I've stumbled into, but kept my footing or whatever it might have been. Like, why did I come out of the neighborhood and why did I end up playing professional football for a couple of years and that experience that it gave me when I could clearly see other people were far more talented than me. I could see it. I look around the corporate America and I go, okay, what's remarkable about me? There are people who have degrees from Harvard and Yale, and they've got masters and PhDs, and they've had the career path, and yet I'm in the chair, like you mentioned. A lot of it's just grace. And then there's just some other things too. I mean, I do think the Lord has, gifted me with certain things that are both a blessing and a curse in some ways. Attention to detail, sense of urgency, work ethic, those types of things. And then surrounding me with people. I mean, again, I'm sitting across from John O'Leary, the great John O'Leary. Are you kidding me right now? The people who have come across my path and in my life and who have not just said hi and hey, call me if you need something, but have actually pursued me and been intentional about making sure they were investing in me, whatever that looked like. I tell people all the time, like, there was a businessman who had no business taking an interest in me, and yet he did. And there's countless numbers of coaches and teachers and business people and mentors and just folks who have poured into me. So the combination of God's grace, people investing in me, some giftings that I think I've learned to steward over time. But other than that, there's not a whole lot different between me and anybody else. I put my pants on one leg at a time like everybody else, and I'm susceptible to the same things that everybody else is.
You mentioned that these characteristics that have allowed you to elevate and pursue a different path than many of your colleagues in grade school, middle school, high school may have chosen were both a blessing and a curse. Work ethic, you said, this drive, man, this drive that you have. It's clear how it's a blessing. How has it been a curse?
Well, spare follow up. Thank you for the follow up, so I can clarify that too a little bit. The Lord doesn't curse, but the way you steward them, the way that you use them, they can be a curse. If you're so passionate about maybe being the best at something, it can cause you to forsake relationships to get results.
Yeah.
And that can be a relationship at home, it can be a relationship in the office. The attention to detail can cause you to be extremely critical and very judgmental of things. There could become a view of success as in like, okay, I'm doing things this way, I'm getting these results, this is the way it should go. Well, the way I approach life and the way I approach work and the way I approach faith isn't the same for somebody else necessarily. And it can give you this self-righteous, inflated view that's very off-putting, to folks. Something I've learned over time is like, I'm not right, you're not wrong. Let's start with that. Now, I have a view of things, and I love to share my view, and let's iterate and talk. And it's taken a long time. So those blessings could be a curse. And early on in my marriage, there's a drive and a passion for even the even without even the full context, John. So there's a full context now looking back on it, but without the full context, it just seems like all I'm trying to do is like climb a corporate ladder or just win and it comes from a pure place of this. I want to do my best, everything I put my hands to. But it can look very different. It can look like I'm putting something above what I would say is the most important thing, and that can leave people isolated and feeling judged. And It caused a lot of challenges early in our marriage for sure, and a selfishness that was kind of rooted in my heart that I'm glad the Lord has exposed and rooted out of me.
That's a great answer. So, you lost your dad when you were 8, and there were men who stepped forward in your life who showed you a positive, possible route.
Hmm.
Coach, I want to get this name right. Herman Colvin.
Coach
I had to
Colvin.
do a little bit of digging for this one, man, but who is
Mm.
Coach Colvin?
Coach Colvin was my high school football coach, and he was one of our PE teachers at Omaha North High School. Was again one of those people that was very intentional and invited me to work with him in the summertime to sell fireworks in these small towns in Nebraska, get exposed to just again different way of life. Growing up in the inner city in North Omaha is vastly different than Norfolk, Nebraska, or Scotts Bluffs, Nebraska, where we went to sell fireworks in the summer, and I got to work out with those high school kids preparing for the season. And he just was always there for me. If I needed something, he was there. Words of wisdom. But I had many coaches. I had a coach in seventh grade, my first year playing football. During that abusive relationship that my mom was going through, the guy that was dating my mom got me signed up for tackle football. And it was a real football program. I started playing tackle football in the neighborhood, but it was a hodgepodge or like seven players. It takes 11 to play football. We didn't have a full team. So this was my first real chance at football. And it was in a neighborhood called Papillion La Vista, which is like 30 to 35 minutes from North Omaha. And my mom says, hey, I can no longer get you to practice because I didn't know the reason, but she said, I just can't get you to practice. And so I remember having to call the coach and saying, hey, coach, I can't come to practice anymore. I have to quit. And he said, no, that's not going to happen. I'll come get you. And so this man drove from Papillion La Vista to North Omaha, 30, 35 minutes, pick me up, 30 to 35 minutes back to practice, 30 to 35 minutes back to North Omaha, and then 30 to 35 minutes just to get himself home after a long day of work. And I tell people all the time that I can't remember his name, and I can
Wow.
hardly remember his face. And sometimes you have the biggest impact on people who will never know you or see you by simply sacrificing your time, talent, treasure, doing the things that are inconvenient in a way. And that coach made a huge difference. And Coach Colvin, the same thing. Just and then I had Coach Turner and just all these teachers, Dr. Ferens and Dr. Dappin, and all these teachers that just said, "Hey, look, we're going to ask you to take some honors math classes and challenge yourself a little bit more." And they didn't have to do that. So
Yeah.
yeah, Coach Colvin, very special human being. I still keep in touch with him. I think he might have texted me the other day. I'm glad you mentioned that. I don't think I responded to him. Thank you for that. Need to write that down.
You're welcome. And more than that, thank you for sharing a story about a nameless, faceless coach who drove 35 minutes to pick up a nameless, faceless kid with really
Amen.
no prospects in life, took him to
Mm,
practice and drove him home, and 2+ hours a day selflessly invested in some kid's life. And today that kid and I meet face to face. Like what a remarkable gift and evidence that the little things in life aren't. So I'm going to advance forward through your illustrious high school career, and it was. You could have played Division I football. You chose Division II. You chose to stay relatively local at the University of Nebraska, Omaha. I'm going to fast forward though through 4 years, man. So let's go to your senior year. You are doing several jobs, and as I go through these jobs, I'd like you to tell me what each of the jobs did to prepare you to be a leader later on in life.
okay.
All right. You're interning at some big energy company. How was that preparing you to be a leader in life beyond college?
Oh, it's it's well. First of all, it's funny what you don't know. Like I don't know. I'm just this naive 18-year-old doing this internship. I don't even know what that means, really. I'm in this company. I want to do a good job. They're giving me assignments. I'm asking questions, and so you don't really even know. I think looking back on it, it taught me a lot. I remember there was a general manager at it was our Calipatria, California geothermal power plant. And I was working on this zinc recovery project where we're trying to harness the zinc out of the geothermal brine that comes up and it flashes off steam, turns the turbine, makes energy. Well, there's minerals in there. We're trying to extract those minerals so you can sell zinc, commodities market, do other things with it. So I'm working on this heat exchanger as a part of this project as an engineering student intern. And my boss, Art Weesey at the time, another person who invested in me, and just again, I just remember his feedback. He goes, "We got to call, so and so, the GM," and I'm like, I gotta call him. Like I'm an 18-year-old kid. I gotta call some grown man and ask him. I'm so petrified to pick up the phone and call him. I didn't know how to start that conversation. And so it taught me a lot about being humble. If you don't know, ask. If it doesn't make sense to you, it doesn't make sense. And to this day, as a leader, I spend a lot of my time just asking very elementary questions and being very comfortable with that and just sitting there going, I don't know. It still doesn't make sense to me. Let me ask it a different way to make sure I understand it. That taught me a lot. But yeah, at the time though, you're just a kid and you're just happy to have an opportunity to contribute.
So you're this intern and you're learning how to ask the questions. You're learning how to play above your current pay grade. And it's
Yeah.
not the only job you're doing in college. You also are helping run a summer camp. What did you
hmm
learn that would serve you later on in life in running that camp?
More than learn, I think it just gave me a chance to give back to kids who look like me and who are growing up like I was, to be present with them.
And
I've,
just so our listeners
yeah,
track, when you say
yeah.
they look like me, they were like me. What do you mean by that?
Just growing up in the inner city, coming from homes that weren't, you know, the prototypical, like mom and dad in the house, not having the ends meet, bare cupboards, empty fridges, that type of
Yeah.
thing. So it gave me a chance just to give back to them, which was awesome. Just being present with them and putting my arm around them. And so it just gave me a chance for that more than anything. So more than learning was more for what a blessing.
Well, another blessing you had in college was you had an opportunity of serving as a bouncer. What did you learn as a bouncer that would serve you later on in life?
Oh my goodness. Well, that was an interesting job. The things you see as a bouncer, especially when it's closing time, early in the night, as everyone's coming in, checking IDs. I could spot a fake real quick though, and we got $50 for every fake ID we found, and I was really good at spotting the fakes, and so that was good. Reading people, not everything as it appears to be, those types of things, but then just taking charge. I think to try to clear out a bar when everyone's having a great time and it's time to shut things down. Um, just taking charge when you have to take charge. And so I would get up on the table and I would say, hey, you don't have to go home, but you have to get out of here. And then just start to get people out of the facility.
There's a song. My mom and dad listen to every podcast, so they will hear what I'm about to say. When the party at the O'Leary house goes on too long and it is time for my parents to go home, I always play closing time. And they hear in the background that little, I don't know the instrument, maybe a guitar, and they know it's time for mom and dad and my siblings and all the babies. Get out of here, man. Love y'all, but it's time for us to clean this party up. So it's a song I heard as a attendee of bars in college, and I'm glad it's one you sang yourself from the top of a bar table.
That's
So
right.
those are three jobs you had. You also had a job, and it is full-time work as a running back for this college. What did you learn as a football player, as a co-captain of this football team that would prepare
Mm.
you later on for life?
Well, I would say, first of all, that was one of the greatest honors of my life to be a part of that program, be a part of that team, to play a role as a co-captain with just a great group of guys who were committed to each other, were committed to purpose and process and the university. Uh, best time. I think football, a lot of things, but football in many ways prepared me probably the most for I think leadership in life. Just the process of what it takes to get ready for a football game. You get mm, nowadays the college football playoff is 15 games or 16 games. You used to only get like 11 games a year, and so over a four year playing career, you're gonna play 45 games roughly, and that's not a lot of opportunity to play the game. And you think about the number of days in a 4 year span, 13, 1400 days, you get 45 to actually play the game. And so the process to
Wow.
get ready for that, just the little disciplines, big victories. And it's taught me about working shoulder to shoulder. If you jump off sides and I don't jump off sides, guess what? We all move back 5 yards. not just you, we all do. We're a team. And so it's important for all of us to own our responsibility or our accountability, but to be responsible for the whole. So learned a lot about just teamwork, learned a lot about preparation, learned a lot about process, hard work, mental toughness, I think. So you think about this. I remember, I mean, it happened every day in college, but it never happened in front of people until I got a chance to be on the roster for the New York Football Giants, 2001, 2002. But I remember, during training camp, there's thousands of people that come to watch practice. And so you make a mistake, they don't say, "Hey, get it next time." They are all over you, and there's strong language, a lot of four-letter words. There's a lot of "you're a this," "you can't this," "you never do this," in front of 10,000 people. And so the mental toughness of football to just like, okay, they're saying something to me. What are they saying to me? What are they trying to help me with? Maybe not the way I would say it or approach it
Yeah.
today, especially in corporate America, but at the same time, they're giving me feedback and that's valuable. So the mental toughness to say all feedback is valuable. The mental toughness when your ankle hurts, your hamstring hurts, you're never 100% playing football, John. I mean, after the first practice, something hurts. And I mean, even the fact that during two days you had to put on wet pants. So think about that. You practice in the morning, your pants don't dry by the
Right.
afternoon. You got to slide on these wet pants. And by the way, and everyone's like, these glory hogs out there on Saturday and Sunday, it's like what they have to go through just to be able to be on that field. And then what they have to do just to be able to compete and to separate themselves in such a way that they even have a chance for glory. I give a lot of credit to folks that do that.
You are the all-time leader in rushing yards. And I
Yeah.
know you would not say it. You probably don't even like hearing it, but it is a reality. Besides your offensive line, because I'm sure you're going to give credit to those guys. Good for them, the five up front. What do you think you possessed as a kid that allowed you to have the success you did, just as a player? And then we'll move into to leadership in life and family.
And I'm glad you mentioned the offensive the line, but it takes a whole team, special teams, defense. You got to have a decent enough passing game to keep the defense honest. It takes coaches that break down film, all that. I know, but it does. It really does. It takes everybody. It's like a company. As a kid, it's like I remember racing my brother. So my brother was older. Um, we would race down this sidewalk, and for me, and I got a painting in my office of our house where I grew up in, and there's a sidewalk, and in the painting, it's you know it's like to scale basically. The house is to scale, so the sidewalk is small, super small yard. But when I was little, that sidewalk was like 100 meters. It was crazy how long it was. But I remember racing my brother, and he beat me, and I would say, "Go again," and then he beat me. I was like, "Let's go again," and I would just keep racing him. And I remember one day I beat him, and he was like, "I don't want to race anymore." It's like, and in a lot of ways, there's probably a difference for our personalities. Like for him, that was like, "Okay, I'm done with that." For me, it was like, "No, no, 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 no. Let's go again. Let's go again. Let's go again. Let's go again." I just have this philosophy that my best is never second best. And I just believe it to my core. To my core. That doesn't mean I always get the outcome I want. It just means if I don't, I haven't done something yet to the best of my ability. Because when I do, I will get the outcome I want. I think that, don't know where that comes from.
Well, it served you well on the football field. You not only have the all-time record for rushing yards, you go into the NFL, which is an incredible honor.
Mm,
And there's a quote that I dug up from your past. It's from your senior year of college. It's from a guy who was the Mid-American Energy CEO. I think you remember him.
I
What he
do.
said was this. He was referring to you. He has two remarkable characteristics that I think are particularly important. One is he has a very high character level. The second thing he is extremely hardworking and he has his priorities laid out brilliantly. Then he went on to say, I think he can probably do anything he wants, whether it's in the NFL or corporate America.
Mm.
He said this before your senior year, before the NFL came calling and before you took on the leadership roles you ultimately would in corporate America. In hearing that quote, what stirs within you?
Oh, just how humbling that is and honoring to hear it from someone I respect dearly. So that's good. You gotta be super emotional, John, right now. Um, yeah, I see God's hand all over that too. Like this is His grace and His providence. I just see it. Um, like I don't know. Like how would someone know to say that and for that to all work out like the way it did, you know? Like Nostradamus or someone maybe could predict in the future. But here's a guy who I don't believe we're all just guys, we're all just people, men and women, we're just people. Here's just this person, um, as successful as he's been and as remarkable a man that I believe he is just a person. And there's no way he could make those comments and statements. And then we'd be sitting here, 20 years later, however long it's been, and it be like, oh, it's all come to pass. Just there's so many factors that have to go into that. So many moments and choices and no's and yeses you have to give and opportunities and all this stuff, right? And so
Yes.
I just see God's grace all over it. That's what stirs in me, and I think that's probably why I'm getting emotional more than anything. And it's just humbling to hear it, um, and for Him to have that kind of interest in me, and just what that does for a young person when someone takes interest, especially with that kind of capacity and that kind of reach, that kind of influence, to reach down and be like, who am I? And for them to, yeah, humbling.
So you have an opportunity within the NFL, the New York Giants. You eventually come
Yep.
home though. You work in just about every single aspect of the business, man. Program, project management, marketing, customer service, renewable energy development, operations, all of that leading you, I think, in 2018 to becoming president and CEO of Mid-American Energy Company. When did you begin to believe that you fit the job title that you were doing? Like just completely comfortable in your skin, in your suit, in that suite, with that name behind your business card. When did you recognize, absolutely, man, I am worthy of this spot now?
Ooh, I still have to give myself a pep talk in regard to that all the time. I'm much, much, much better now. I mean, I was a train wreck. I mean, if you could be inside of my head and hear what I was saying to myself and the questions I was asking, and not just the questions, I'm sure everyone asks them. I think it was the frequency of the questions that I was asking myself. I'm still working on it, but I'm much better. And I would say I sort of turned a corner where I don't think it was no longer hindering me as a leader, probably in late 2020. So almost all 18, all 19, almost 3 full years after having the title. And then coming to pilot, I think I've walked in it more. I've been more steady in it, more settled in it. And so I feel like I'm kind of maybe fully owning it, but I still have these little gaps, little moments, but much, much, much better. I'm still not fully comfortable, but it took a good 3 years there, in that role before I started to think like, okay, okay, get over it.
You mentioned pilot. I mean, we'll jump ahead through your resume, although we could spend an entire podcast just talking about the steps you took to end up where you are at pilot. Because that alone, I think, Adam, it is truly remarkable. You can refer to it as grace, God's hand. It is those two things, undoubtedly.
Yep.
And yet it was a whole lot of things you did extraordinarily well to elevate your ability to lead people. Where that takes you is now, you would say on you're swimming, you're paddling with, but you are leading 30,000 people every day. Uh, just talk briefly about Pilot. For those who may not know the name Pilot, what do y'all do?
Oh, probably the coolest company ever, to be honest. It is an amazing company. Like you mentioned, 30,000 team members. We operate in 44 states in the United States, and then we have around 25 to 30 locations in Canada. And so it's international from that respect. But it's a travel center company that meets the needs of interstate travelers, mostly the trucking industry. So think truck stops, but also auto drivers and RV drivers as well. We sell diesel and gasoline, we sell food, and a bunch of amenities like showers and scales and other services that professional drivers need. We have 375 locations that have quick serve restaurants, so like a Wendy's or a Taco Bell and Arby's. we're the franchisee of those. Then we have our own proprietary deli. We make pizza wings. It's a massive company from a revenue standpoint, depending on the price of fuel, 50 to 70 billion dollars of revenue. We serve 1.2 million guests per day that stop at our facilities to either fuel up or get food or use the restroom. So we really have two big parts of the company. We have the fuel procurement side and the logistics side, which we buy diesel and gasoline in the market. We store it in these terminals and big tanks. We have pipeline space to transport it all across the country to get to the location where we can deliver it to our stores. We operate around 1,400 tanker trucks, which is the third largest fleet in the country, so that we can every 22 to 25 seconds, we're unloading a big tanker of fuel somewhere in Canada or the United States. And so it's a very big logistical puzzle. It deals in retail, where we sell all the brands, Pepsi, Coke, Frito, etc. We've got restaurant, businesses and opportunities there. It's, it is just a myriad of stuff. And it's so fun to try to solve that and make sure everything's where it needs to be and service is up to par. And we have a great opportunity to rebuild our facilities and make them best in class and EV network, all this stuff, all this cool stuff. So it's just the dynamic nature of the business is just fascinating to me. I love it. And I get to do it with the most amazing people, truly.
You mentioned 50 to 70 billion in revenue. We're talking 15, 16, 17 billion gallons of fuel that you help deliver each year. It's an amazing big totals. Complicated business. I don't even know what question to ask around the business side, so I'll
Mm,
distill it down to stuff that I care more deeply about. It's mission,
mm,
it is people, and I love your mission statement. So here it is: showing people they matter at every turn.
mm.
And before I have you speak to it, imagine that you all were driving forward a large organization like this. What would you want up on the wall? And I can't think of anything more beautiful than that,
Yeah.
that man, just showing people that they matter at every turn, whether those people
Mm.
are the one I'm speaking to, Wendy, who made this happen, your chief of staff, the 29,998 other leaders that you guide forward, the 1.2 million people you interact and get to encourage and love every day, showing people they matter at every turn. What does that mission mean to you? Why does it matter?
It means everything to me. A couple of things were important to me right away when I got here. One, who are we? What are we about? Where are we going? And how naive of me to come in to an industry I don't even know, to a company that's been around for 65 years and say, here's what we're going to be about. And so our leadership team worked really hard to come up with what we call our house. And it's just a framework that looks like a house that starts with our purpose. It has our virtues, who we are, it has our business ambition, then it has these strategic pillars, and then it kind of boils down and it's just structured like a house. And it was important that it sounded like us, that it came out of us, it came out of our perspective, it came out of our experience. It represented who we were as leaders. And so we spent a lot of time going over that. And the thing that you spent a lot of time talking about, or and I've kind of highlighted too, are just the people that I think showed me that I mattered. The extent that they went to and what that did for me. Now you have these microtransactions, and you can say it's pretty Pollyanna or naive to think that in a 40-second transaction, you showing someone that they matter makes a difference. You'd be surprised. And if we orient everything around that idea, our facilities should show you that you matter. They should be organized in such a way that's convenient. The things should be clean so that you can feel like it's a safe place to enter into. I mean, everything, the way we interact with you, the way we price things, the products on our shelves, all of it should show you that you matter and you should feel that way. And even if we're nameless and faceless in a lot of ways, to a lot of folks, their experience with us can have an impact. And I think it orients our business in a remarkable way. And you see it when there's hurricanes, you see it when there's just stuff. There's just a lot of stuff in the world. And when you have as many locations as we have, over 900 outlets in the 44 states and Canada, it is a microcosm of society and people that work for us who the best part of their day, John, the best part of a lot of our team members' day is coming to work. And that's important that we get that right.
Every work, every job is sacred. Some lady used to yell out her window at her boys as they were ridiculing someone's uniform as he was doing his job well. Every job
Yeah.
is sacred. Last year in the United States, 1.2 million people attempted suicide. And
Mm,
so if we collectively and you individually don't think it matters to show people that they matter at every turn, you're missing a far more important mark than shareholder return or top line revenue, bottom line
right.
profitability. If we show people they matter at every turn, those things will follow suit and will achieve
Amen.
results we can't fathom. And I heard you say that far more articulately than I when we were together in front of your leaders. You were reminding your team what we really do here. It was awesome. We want to unpack that because today is a little bit less about pilot and a little bit more about the person who gets to work there today. Adam, I've heard from your friends some characteristics that you just personify. Uh, Discipline. It turns out, man, that you are one of the most disciplined individuals I've ever had on the podcast. We've had 700 or so guests now. Why is discipline important?
Ah, it's one of those things that is just deep down inside. I had it when I was little. I remember getting up early in the morning. Back in the day, you go to kindergarten either in the morning or the afternoon. I chose the afternoon so I can go bowling with my mom on, I think, twice a week or something like that. And I was still up way before everyone else. And we only had one bathroom, and I was hogging the bathroom. And my brother and sister get so mad at me. And so I just think some of it's just it's innate inside of me. But it's just I think it's important because I want to be able to look at myself at the end of the day, at the end of the week, end of the month, end of the year, end of my career, end of my life, and just say I try to maximize every moment I had to do my very best. I just believe my best is never second best, and I'll only know or be able to remotely achieve that if I'm doing all I can with the time I have.
Part of your discipline is you wake up every day at 3:07.
You know,
This morning, man, to honor this time we were going to spend together, I woke up at 3:07. And as the alarm was sounding, my wife rolls over and says, "What's wrong?" And I had a long answer for her that I felt, but instead I just turned the stupid alarm off and got out of bed. And one of the more amazing
uh,
things is I had almost 3 hours to pray
mm,
and reflect
mm,
and meditate and plan and dream and
mm,
be before the sun even began to peek over the horizon. So I'm not committing to you today that I'm getting up at 3:07 tomorrow, but I understand the power of discipline
mhm,
and focus. So I
mm.
appreciate that about you. Faithfulness.
Thank you.
That's another characteristic that your friends say, man, this is a faithful gentleman. Talk
Mm.
about faithfulness. Why does faith matter to you?
Well, in my faith, I think it's important. Mostly, I feel that, again, there's a lot of views in the world, and they're all, I'm not right, you're not wrong. But my view is, I think it's impossible. And we have demonstrated over the history of time that we are incapable of governing ourselves as humans. And we do what's right in our eyes. It turns out that normally generally has proven not to be the wisest thing. And so having something from the outside speak into, for me, drawing the lines of what's right and what's wrong and, where the white lines on the football field are, so to speak, of life is very important to me. And then ultimately, what is it all about? I tell folks all the time, if you think about the most famous people in the world, I mean, even like old generals, Napoleon or whoever, I mean, you don't think about those people very rarely. I just brought up Napoleon. You probably haven't thought about Napoleon for ever since you studied him in school. And even then, he got like a paragraph. And this is the guy who was trying to conquer the world. You think about the lineage of, for me, faith of Jesus Christ. If you look at that lineage, you read it, it's there. It's in scripture. You can read about who begot who and begot who and begot who and it begot all the way down to Jesus. You very quickly get bored with those names. You start to skip them. And these are people who God saw fit to put in the Bible, and yet we get bored with the names. And so at the end of the day, like the legacy we're trying to build on earth, the stuff we're trying to amass, and the goals we're trying to accomplish, if they're not connecting to people, and living through others and having other people say, hey, there was this thing that I learned, that I heard, there's honor on work or whatever it is. And what are we doing? And so just faith to me just gives me the perspective, the long-term infinite perspective of what this is all about to begin with. And then for me to help draw some lines, help me to be convicted when I'm making choices or thinking about making choices that don't align to what I think the creator of the universe has determined what's best for me, not what society and man has determined is okay to do.
Does that ever concern you that in our secular world, in a massive publicly traded business like Berkshire Hathaway, in front of 30,000 folks, serving 1.2 million leaders each day, that being a person of faith and outwardly so is a risk?
No, yes and no. Yes and no. Let me I want to be fully honest with this answer. Yes and no. So, yes, that someone might want to take it out of context or weaponize it. Even my leadership stand, we work for a great company. You matter, and our best is never second best. That's what I stand for as a leader. The you matter piece can get weaponized. You said I matter, therefore I should get a 12% raise. Or you said I mattered, therefore I shouldn't be let go for stealing from the company or whatever. I mean, that can get weaponized. My faith can get weaponized from folks. Folks can grab onto that. And I can make a decision that I think is in the best interest of the business and our purpose. And someone can say that's a bias because of my faith, or that's incongruent with my faith, or whatever it might be. So there's a risk from that standpoint. But I also don't think it is. I think that if you have a leader that's leading with principles and precepts that are based on stewarding things well and maximizing gifts and resources and helping people aspire to being more and giving more and more discretionary effort, not for the sake of promotions, but for the sake of purpose. And how is that not a good thing? And so I don't think I think it's more of an asset than a risk. And I'm not evangelizing people, John. I'm not, that is not my MO. Again, hey, I'm not right. You're not wrong. I have a view, and there's something that for me is important to me, and my leadership is shaped by it, but it's not shaped by it in such a way that it makes you feel less than. It's shaped by, I love you and I see you, and I just want the best for you. That's my desire. And so I just think it's more of an asset than a risk at the end of the day.
Where there were three primary characteristics your friends brought up: discipline, your faith, and then your passion for family. You love your
Mhm.
family, man. So
Love
why
them.
does it's so obvious, but I'm great at asking the obvious question. So here we go. Why does family matter to you?
Oh, what a blessing. What an honor. What an honor to be a dad, to be a husband. It's such a cool thing. Cool thing. I think, well, geez, it's not a fair thing to say because we're not all born into families. That's not true. Majority of us are. I think that there's a design for us to be born into a family. I think that's important foundationally because of how I think things have been organized in the universe. So I think the family and the nucleus, and I think what comes from that. And I think when family mattered, not to quote the old sitcom, but when family mattered, I think that people were healthier mentally, emotionally, physically. I just think we were a healthier society. And again, that's a measurement to a standard that maybe no longer exists today. I don't know. But I just believe family is important. And having parents that love you, that are nurturing you, that are providing for you, that are supporting you, that are holding you accountable, that are calling you higher, extremely important. And then the privilege to have built-in friends. Like my wife's my best friend, Sabrina, is exceptional. You should be interviewing her too, by the way, because she is awesome.
She's she's on next. So I'm
She's
looking
funny.
forward to that conversation. To
Well, you're
put
gonna
up
have
with a
to sit.
man as disciplined as you requires a woman with an awful lot of grace, man.
We are a match made in heaven, truly. I think we're truly soulmates. We're complete opposites in a lot of ways like that. But she's my best friend. And then my daughter, Kennedy, my oldest, 22, turns 23 next month. And my son, Adam, 20. Just remarkable young people. They have turned out to be amazing humans. And I'm sure there's going to be more bumps in the road for them and choices they're going to make, they're going to regret and learn from. But by and large, they are prototypical what you'd want as a dad. They are amazing kids. And they're our best friends. They're built-in best friends too. Love them. So important.
Within discipline, intentionality is a word that would show up characteristic. And one of the things you've done as a couple for 2+ decades is having a date night. And a lot of
Yeah.
folks have asked John and Beth, like, what do we do to remain dating? Like I'm still
Hmm.
dating my wife, man. We've been together 23 years total, but we're still dating. We're still saying
Yeah.
we're still having fun. And I think that idea of intentionality around one time is critical, even and maybe in particular when you're leading forward 30,000 others. So there were about 8 quotes that I've heard you say either in our time together or in other interviews you've done. I don't have time for all of them, but I have time for this one. One of the questions that was asked of you, and I think it was generally, what keeps you humble and hungry? Was this. You responded with these words. I had to look them up exactly to where they came from, but then I found it. But here's your response. There's much food beneath the fallow ground of the poor.
Yes.
And I didn't know where that came from. I thought I vaguely remembered it, had to look it up.
Hmm.
There's much food beneath the fallow ground of the poor. Why does that quote matter to you?
Oh, that's one of those things that the Lord highlighted for me just in my daily reading a long time ago. Part of it is, and again, it comes together when it comes together, but folks would tell me things like what you quoted earlier. He can do anything, he wants, whether it's NFL or in business or corporate America or whatever. People will say, "What's next for you?" They always say this to me, "What's next for you? How long will you be in this job?" or whatever it might be. There's things about just poverty in inner cities and how much more we have to do to help folks, which I agree, there's a lot more we can do. But there's much food in the fallow ground of the poor, which means where you are standing, if you just till the earth, if you just work the soil, if you just plant, you will harvest. Beneath your feet, there's all this sustenance and nourishment and opportunity. It's right there, whether it's 2 foot by 2 foot or 2 acres by 2 acres, right beneath your feet. Just work it. And so, like, what's next for you? I don't know. There's so much food beneath my feet. There's so much to unearth that I haven't even gotten to yet. I just want to see what's beneath my feet. I'm going to keep working and plowing this field and this plot with all my might, with all I got, and we'll see. Just it's just important for me. I just think the way what we say about it determines how we go about it. And if we say there's much food beneath my feet, it should determine how we go about stewarding that plot of land we're standing on top of.
Adam, you grew up in a poor community. You grew up in an abusive home. Your father passed away when you were 8. You grew up an interracial child in a racially divided time. You grew up with a seemingly a whole lot of strikes against you. And today, as you and I are having this conversation, you're not alone. There's a lot of folks who feel like our best days are behind us. There's a lot of people
Hmm.
who feel like the American dream is dead and gone. To those who feel the weight of that despair and that struggle right now in one way or another in their lives. They could be an 18-year-old kid wondering what's for me, or they could be a 78-year-old adult wondering life did not go the way I intended. What
Hmm.
encouragement would you give for them right now?
Well, first of all, heart breaks for folks who are in that spot and feeling that way. And that is a real weight. And it does cause immobility and paralysis and sometimes desperation that shows up in very harmful ways. Some heartbreaks for folks there. But I would say that today's a new day and there are choices we can make today that can start the process of a different outcome. We are capable of making a different choice, whatever that is. And I mean, golly, I remember my nephews telling me, Unc, you don't understand. Unc, you don't understand. I got to work twice as hard as the white man to get to where they get to. And it just blows my mind. I remember telling them, like, I don't understand that. You mean to tell me if you were capable of working twice as hard, you wouldn't? If you could only work half as hard, you would? Why would you only work half as hard? Why wouldn't you give it all you got? Why wouldn't you choose the day to do the best you can, to get up and go to that community college and take that class, or to get up and go to that depot and drive that truck and do it the best you can? Why would you not do it? Whether you're born at, the 2/3 mark on the mountaintop or 2 miles out on the trailhead, You still have to climb. You still have to walk. You still have to do. So there's opportunity right in front of you that I would just encourage you to go pursue and take it one day at a time, one micro moment at a time. It will pay dividends. It will pay dividends. We make choices and our choices make us. And we can start to make choices today. Go for it. Just start going. That's what I would say. I don't know if that'd be inspiring to some or helpful, but I know there are choices we can make today that can put us on a different path and have a different outcome.
And I'm so glad our paths have connected and crossed, and that I look across the table at a friend, a brother, man, a guy I look up to and love. And we have 7 questions that tether all of our guests together, including my friend, Adam Wright. So, Adam, real quick, short fire questions and answers that live inspired 7 begin with what's been the most impactful book you've ever read?
Oh, the Bible. That's fair to say. Outside of the Bible, I would say anything. I think it's Dr. Henry Cloud. Great author, speaker, that just foundational for me as a leader.
About setting boundaries and necessary endings and a whole lot of other things that
That's
Henry
right.
Wrightson speaks on. What's one
That's right.
positive characteristic or one beautiful trait that you possessed as a little boy growing up in North Omaha that you wish you exhibited as brilliantly today?
Oh, that's a tough question. You say rapid fire quick. That's a hard question. Something I exhibited then that I wish I exhibited more today. Oh, I don't know how to say it, but I would say zero cynicism.
Hmm,
Like as a young boy there, I didn't think anything of anything other than, you know, hey, it's a new day. Now it's like politics and all this stuff. And there's moments where I have to answer that question about my faith and go, is it a risk? Is it? Yeah. When I was a kid, I'd have been like, just, hey, here it is.
awesome. If your home caught fire, your family's out safely, and you have an opportunity of running in and grabbing one item, what's that one physical thing you'd run back outside with?
Do the dogs count as family?
Dogs are out, man. You had them on leashes already. They're outside safely.
Ah, nothing, nothing, John. There's nothing I would run back in for. It's all replaceable. It really is. There's nothing that I can't replace or I don't have in my heart already that I
Hmm.
don't remember fondly.
If you could sit on a bench on a gorgeous day and have a
Mm.
long conversation with anyone living or deceased, who would you like to be seated next to?
Sabrina, my wife.
That's so awesome. Make her listen to this so she'll love you even more as a result of that answer. What's the best advice Sabrina or your mom or dad or some coach or some executive or anybody else ever gave you? So the best advice you've ever received is
Mm, golly. If I could only give you one thing that I think has probably served me the most is whatever your hands find to do, do with all your might.
what wisdom would you whisper to yourself at age 20? So this probably
Yeah,
junior year or so running back with life in front of a man. What advice would you give yourself at age 20?
you matter. I would say you matter.
Adam Wright, servant at Pilot, it has been said that all great people can have their lives summed up in one sentence. How would you like yours to read?
In one sentence. These are tough questions. These are not rapid fire questions,
This is
John. Let's
rapid
be
fire. You're
honest.
taking too
These are
long.
not,
Speed
they're
it up,
not rapid
man.
fire. You want me to summarize my whole
Shareholders need their
life?
return.
You want me to summarize my whole life in a sentence without ever having thought about it. Now, here's the provocative thing, though. You've made me think about it. Now I got to actually go spend some real time thinking about it. I would say he loved God and loved people.
Adam Wright, I want to thank you for loving God and loving people. I want to thank you for reminding us at every turn that our lives matter and that in
Amen.
spite of the headwinds we face and the challenges we endure, that God is still God and the best is yet to come.
Amen.
Adam,
Wow.
thank you for being my friend, for being our guest, and for the leadership that you are instilling into your people and now ours.
And thank you right back for being my friend, being the man that you are, the leader who you are, and all that you do to help people live inspired, John. Thank you.
My friends, that is Adam Wright. My name is John O'Leary. Today is our day. What a gift. Live inspired. Well, my friends, I told you that today's episode was going to be emotional and inspirational and practical and real and filled with faith and love, and Adam did not disappoint. Adam shared that Pilot operates more than 900 locations in 44 states across the United States and dozens more in Canada, that they serve 1.2 million interstate travelers every single day. And yet, instead of top line revenue, bottom line profitability, Adam and his more than 30,000 individual team members focus instead on empowering individuals that they encounter that they matter at every single turn. In other words, he has galvanized this group to recognize the value of their life and to work diligently for all 1.2 million customers and beyond, that they might recognize the value of their life at every single turn. My friends, if today's episode has moved you in the same way that it moved me, I think you would also love my conversation with Netflix co-founder. That's right, Netflix. His name is Mark Randolph. As co-founder and founding CEO of Netflix, Mark Randolph laid much of the groundwork for the streaming services that has grown to more than 150 million subscribers, including the O'Learys, and fundamentally altered how the world experiences media. If you've never heard the Netflix origin story, you've never heard about overcoming adversity individually, you will love the conversation with my buddy Mark Randolph. He reveals seldom shared anecdotes about Netflix, including the iconic brand, how it got its name, and their David versus Goliath story with Blockbuster, a company your kids and grandkids may not have heard of, but you have. Yet it's Mark's unconventional definition of success, and it's about a little bit more than money or fame, and how creating positive workplace culture starts with the leaders that I always found most intriguing about the conversation. You can tune into that episode way back at episode 338, or by cruising over with me right now to the episode I just recorded with Adam, my buddy. And go to the show notes at johnolearyinspires.com/podcast. We'll have a link right there in today's episode. Well, family, it turns out that there are fires out west and storms out east and struggles up north and difficulties down south and disappointments everywhere in between. And if that's what you want to focus on, have at it. The world does. It also turns out, though, that what you focus on grows. And I so appreciate you tuning into the Live Inspired podcast, where we don't hide away from the fires and the storms and the challenges and the disappointments. We just try to remind those that we serve that they have agency and the gift to move through them together. If you get value from these, you can do a couple things for me right now. You can go ahead and rate and review the show anywhere you download and listen to your podcast. You can also share with the people you work with, you work out with, you worship with, that you tune in to the Live Inspired podcast with John O'Leary, and they should too. Well, family and friends, I want to thank you for tuning in this time, and I want to encourage you to recognize how firm the foundation is until next time. So until then, my name is John O'Leary, and today is your day. What a gift. Live inspired.